Hello, welcome back to another video in the NetWorker training series. In today's video, we will look at how to deploy a vProxy. Also, I would like to introduce you to my new app called the NetWorker Commands, but more about this at the end of the video. Right, so NetWorker provides the ability to perform virtual machine protection and recovery by using NetWorker VMware Protection solution with vProxy appliance. So here are a few features of NVP or the Networker VMware Protection. So it uses a standalone data mover proxy appliance, or also called as a vProxy appliance, to backup and restore virtual machines that run on the VMware environment. Networker directly manages the vProxy appliance without the use of an external load like VBA for proxy management and also for load balancing. It also stores the virtual machine backups as raw virtual machine disk files or VMDK on the DD device. Networker does not convert the backup to any backup streaming format. Now let's take a look at the required components for Networker VMware Protection using vProxy. So we need a vCenter and an ESXi, obviously, because ESXi hosts the VM and vCenter is used to manage the entire VMware environment. Then we have the Networker server with NMC. NMC is required because the backup configuration as well as the restore can be done only via the NMC. So next, we need the vProxy appliance, which has access to both the data domain, the ESXi, the vCenter, as well as the Networker server for different communications. So we have more information regarding the port requirements in the coming slides. Then obviously we have the data domain, which is the target storage, and it is one of the basic requirements for NVP. So without a data domain, you will not be able to implement an NVP or Networker VMware Protection. The compatibility needs to be checked before you go ahead and implement your NVP for your environment. So the vCenter version, the ESXi version, the data domain OS version, the vProxy appliance, and the Networker server versions should be all compatible with each other for the NVP to work smoothly. So more details can be got regarding the compatibility using the EMC compatibility website. The link to the website is in the description below. Now looking at the vProxy resource requirement, we see that it requires 4 into 2 gigahertz CPU, 8 gigs of memory, 2 disks, one with 59 GB and the other with 98 GB. IP requirement, it can either support IPv4 or IPv6. It will not support dual stack. It can support up to 4 SCSI controllers, as well as the minimum requirement is one VMX 3 NIC. You can add more depending on your requirement, but this is the resource requirement that is required when you deploy the vProxy appliance. Other than the requirement that we had mentioned earlier, we need VMware tools at least version 10 or above on the VMs, and if in case you want to use the MS SQL Server appliance consistent protection, you need VMware tool 10.1 or later. On the data domain front, you need at least 6.0 OS version or later. So you need to again check the compatibility guide to see which particular OS version is compatible with your Networker server as well as with the vProxy appliance that you have. It also needs to have NFS v3 enabled and running, and also a user account with administrative privilege, which you can use to manage file level restore and also instant access restores. Now let's look at the network requirement. NVP solution requires the network ports that are outlined in the image here. So I had to steal this image from the VMware Networker VMware integration guide. Link to that document is in this screen as well as in the description below. So let's go ahead and look at the network port requirements. So from the Networker server to the vProxy appliance, we need port 9090. and this is for the NVP web service calls and to initiate and monitor operations like backup and recoveries. Then we have from the network server to the vCenter the port 443, which is HTTPS, and this is to enable the VMware view in NMC in the networker and also for administering the controls there. The next is the port 443 again between your networker server and the ESXi server. So this is required for emergency restore and vProxy redeployment as of version 19.3. Emergency restore is specifically used for restoring your vCenter appliance, because when you're restoring the vCenter appliance, obviously you do not have a vCenter to talk to, so that is why you need to talk directly to your ESXi host. Next port is between the vCenter server and or the vCenter and the networker server, and this is for vSpere client VM backup and restore plugin that is installed on the vCenter. Then we do have, let's see, between the ESXi server and the data domain, which are ports 111, 2049, and 2052, which is required for the file level restore and also for instant recovery. So 2049 is NFS3 port, so that is required for mounting the data domain image, the restore image onto the ESXi for restore. So we need the port 111 and 2049 open between the virtual machine and the data domain. So this is required for the SQL consistent backup and also for the FLR backup. We need the ports open for vProxy appliance 2 DNS on port 53 for name resolution, between the vProxy appliance and data domain on port 22, 111, 131, 161, 2049, and 2052 for data domain management. Between the vProxy appliance and the ESXi server on port 443 and 902 for backup and recovery operations. Between the vProxy appliance and the target VM, which is on port 9613, and this is for vProxy FLR. So this is used for pushing your agent and also to reading the directory structure of the mounted backup image. Then you also need the port 443 between your vProxy appliance and vCenter for vProxy registration and also for backup and recovery operations. So most of the operations you see here are on port 443 because it is done using the API calls, and that is why you need to have HTTP ports open between all the components here. So now let's look at the few of the disk types that NVP does not support. So NVP does not support independent disks, persistent or non-persistent. It does not support RDM independent, virtually compatible mode, or RDM physical compatibility mode. However, RDM dependent virtual compatibility mode is supported, but with certain limitations. Please refer to the VMware integration guide for more details. NVP supports two transport modes, which is hot add transport mode and NBD or network block device transport mode. So we use hot add transport mode for faster backup and restore. So you can get across network routing, firewall, and SSL certificate issues because you do not use the network for when you're using the hot add transport mode. The vProxy appliance supports a maximum of 25 concurrent hot add sessions. To support hot add mode, you have to deploy a vProxy on an EXI host that has a path to the storage that holds the target virtual disk for backup. And hot add also requires VMware hardware version 7 or later. So the sites that contain many virtual machines that do not support hot add require the NBD transport mode. This can cause congestion on the ESXi management network, so plan your backup network carefully for large-scale NBD installations. So we have been looking just at the tip of the iceberg, so I recommend you to go through the VMware integration guide for more details regarding the performance tuning, the requirements, the limitations of NVP. Link to the guide is in the description. Now let's go and look at a quick demo on how to deploy a vProxy. So this demo will contain only the deployment of vProxy. We will not be configuring any backups. So we have an upcoming video where we will be looking at the configuration of the protection group for VM backups. So stay tuned for that. Let's hop on to the vSphere. So to deploy, first you have to follow a checklist and make sure that you have the system time between the vCenter and the ESX vProxy synced. You have assigned a correct IP address to your vProxy. Always use an FQDN name everywhere. Make sure that the DNS lookup works and you have made an entry for your vProxy IP hostname. You have a data domain which has all the compatible components in place. So there are many more important details that you might want to familiarize with. I request you to again look at the VMware integration guide for these details. So looking at the DNS, this is the entry for our NetWorker vProxy or NVP vProxy host. So we have an IP address of 192.168.75.21 with a host name of NVP1. Let's now go to the vCenter, go to hosts and clusters, go to the ESXi host where you want to deploy the vProxy to, right click and say deploy OVF template, local file, upload, and this is my vProxy. Click on open, click on next. So let's call it with the same name, NVP1. I want it to be under the location home. ESXi is the host where I want this to be deployed. It's validating. Alright, so the validation is completed. So the product is Dell EMC vProxy version 4.2, which is the latest version at the moment because I'm using the latest version of NetWorker 19.3. That is why we have that here. Download size, disk size, so on and so forth. Let's click next. Accept the license. So let's keep the destination here. This is to select your we are going to do thin provisioning, not thick provisioning, because we are in a lab. So next. So the network, I have this is the network that I want it to be in. Protocols will be IPv4. IP allocation is manual. So next. What is the DNS? 192.168.75.2 is my DNS. FQDN nvp1.com. IP is going to be 21. Subnet mask is going to be 32. Default gateway is going to be 1. So I don't want to select anything for VMnet2. So this is new. We had just one VM network interface being added during deployment. So now I see that we have two. That's a good thing. So two properties were set invalid. Alright, so the password, the root password is going to be this and this. The admin password is going to be this and this. So next and finish. So now we wait for the deployment to complete. All right, now that the vProxy has been deployed, let's go ahead and log into the vProxy and check for the network configuration. Right, let's see. Let's use the hostname admin, password that we had given during the deployment. Then let's check the IP address. And looks like the IP address that has been assigned is a DHCP IP address. We had provided it 75.21, which it did not take. Let's go ahead and reconfigure that. For that, you can use the AST2 tool. Go to network system, network setting. And once it is loaded, we want it 0. Let's go ahead and edit this. It should have a static IP address, and it should have the IP address 192.168.75.21, subnet mask of 255.255.255.0, and the host name as nvp1.0.com. All right, that looks good. Let's see what's next. That's the IP address that we want. Let's take a look at the host name. The host name is wrong as well. So it should be nvp1, the domain. Let's add a DNS as well. It's the 875.2. And the search domain is 0.com. Okay. Okay, that looks good. Let's quit out of Yast and clear the IP, check the IP address again, and it's 192.168.75.21. That's good. Let's hop on to the backup server. So we have our vProxy deployed. We have the IP configuration set on the vProxy. We checked the connectivity from the backup server. That looked good. So let's go ahead and add the vProxy appliance to our NetWorker server. So before we do that, we have to first integrate the vCenter with the NetWorker. So for this, just go to Protection, go to VMware View, right click, add vSpere. We'll put in the name. It's vcsa.crazyroad.com. The name is administrator at .com, password, and say OK. So if we go ahead and refresh. Alright, so our VCSA, that is our vCenter, is now integrated with the NetWorker server, and you can see my ESX system and all the VMs within that within the server. So I have DC, I have the vProxy, our NetWorker server, and the vCenter server. All right, now let's go ahead and add the vProxy. For this, hop on to the Devices tab, VMware vProxies, right click. You have two options, New VMware Proxy Wizard and New. So the only difference is that if in case the registration fails, using the proxy wizard, the proxy does not get added, but with the manual method, it gets added, and then if it does not get registered, you might have to delete and re-add it again. So let's check the proxy configuration method. first. So register the VMware proxy. So we have to select the vCenter where the vProxy is deployed to. Click on next. Let's go ahead and find our vProxy. Here we are. Say yes. Admin password. So this is the admin password that we had set up when we deployed the vProxy. Then click on next. You could set the hot add and the NBD. So if you see here, the max hot add sessions is set to 13, but you can set it up to 25. And the maximum NBD set to 0. That means that it will not allow any NBD backups to take place. Click on next. Review the configuration that you have selected and then click on register. So let's wait for a few minutes for it to complete the registration. So it says registration failed. Failed registration, user ID or password, invalid credentials. All right. Let's take a look at what we have put in. Let's hop on to the NRE to cross-check on the password that we had put in. So we are on the NRE console, admin, and PASS. Okay, looks correct to me. Let's retry the configuration. And then we close. So as you see, it's not added. So let's try the manual method now. So the vProxy that we have is nvp1.crazy.com. So always use the FQDN names. So the vCenter is this. User ID is admin. And this is the password. Nothing else required. Just click on OK. And then let's take a look at the logs. Unable to register, probably password. Alright, after a little troubleshooting, I found that the vProxy was still trying to refer to the old IP address that was configured to it. So I have rebooted the vProxy appliance now. And let's try to configure our vProxy on NetWorker again. So NVP and the password. All right, click on next and then register. All right, now it's done. If I go back here, I can see that the vProxy is now added. You have the release information here, and that should be okay. So remember, if you are changing the IP address of your vProxy, don't forget to reboot it. So now that we have deployed our vProxy successfully, let's look at a few of the logs that are helpful for troubleshooting on the vProxy server. So the main one we have already actually seen, which is the vrap ID. So this particular log file helped us to figure out where exactly the issue was. So if I have to take you back, let's do that. Let's do a more. So this was the initial log, and this is where we were trying to register earlier. And if you see, it was failing here, stating that the SSH connection to 192.168.75.129, which was the old IP of the vProxy, the connection was not able to be established to it. So that is why it was failing. So this is one of the logs that will help you to troubleshoot the registration of your vProxy. Let me go one folder up. So the location of the folder is /opt emc vProxy runtime logs, and you have a number of folders here. So the one which is of most importance to you for your day-to-day operational failures is the vBackupD, because this particular folder will contain the logs related to the backup of your VM image. So there are multiple files here. For example, the vBackupD boost helps you with the errors related to the communication with your data domain. The -vddk helps you with communication with the backup of the VM itself. The snap manager helps you with the troubleshooting of the snapshot itself. So you can use all these logs. So the best way to see which log is updated is just to list it by time and just go and looking into the file which has the latest update. And the other two files that we have there is the FLRD. The VFLRD is contains the logs relevant to the FLR restore operation in for VMs. So anything relevant to that will be in the VFLRD, and the vRecoverD again is going to have logs relevant to the recover of the VMs. All right, that is all I had for the NVP and vProxy for you. I am delighted to introduce to you NetWorker Commands, the Android app that has been developed by CrazyRove Studio. This app is a reference guide for networker commands, so no more digging into the PDF document for the commands that you're looking for. Just launch the app on your mobile and search for whichever commands that you are looking for. On the landing page, you have a search option as well as all the commands from the command reference guide listed below it. You can either directly scroll for your command here or start typing the command or part of it in the search bar, and there you have it. Tap on the command to get to the man pages for the selected command. The details page is quite vivid with crisp font and smooth scrolling. To go back to the search page, hit the back button or the back icon on the top. You can also look at other content from CrazyRove Studios on the menu. This app is currently available on Google Play Store and the iOS version is coming soon. I hope you find this useful. As always, you can reach out to me with suggestions through my Twitter page. Thank you all for your support. Thanks for sticking with me till the end of this video. I hope you found this useful. If you have any questions or comments, share it with our community in the comment section below, or you can drop me a message at my Twitter account. I will see you on another video. Goodbye.